So I thought I'd do a follow-up video on the Hyte Y60. A few people wanted to know more about this case's thermal performance. So today, we're going to put some hot and spicy hardware in it like this RTX 3090. We're going to do some stupid stuff like trying to use an air cooler in a fish tank, and we'll try a few different configurations to see what the optimal cooling solution is for this case. Aside from, of course, full custom looping both the CPU and GPU, we will be doing that at some point soon, but for this video, I just wanted to do some experimenting to get a better idea of what the average consumer can expect in terms of cooling performance. Timestamps down below if you want to skip to anywhere. Let's get into it. This video is brought to you by Hyte. You guys know the drill. You've just finished building your brand new PC, you boot it up, and bam, that hideous Activate Windows watermark appears. And the worst part is you forgot to budget $200 for an activation key from Microsoft because you spent it all on RGB. But that's okay, because you don't need to spend $200. You can pick one up from today's video sponsor Hyte for 1/10 of the price. The best part is you can use my code TT25 for 25% off, which takes this already cheap Windows 10 Pro key from around $22 to $16. You place your order, your activation code gets added to your orders page, you whack it into the Windows activation screen, and boom, you're fully activated, no more watermarks being burned into your retinas. TT25 for 25% off, link in description. Alright, so we've got a Dell 3090 here that I borrowed from Nene's PC. Obviously, we've got it vertically mounted. We're also running a Ryzen 9 3950X, so some pretty powerful hardware that can generate some serious heat. Now, obviously, GPU temps aren't going to fluctuate too much between these tests, although make sure you watch till the end, because I am going to test some different GPUs from different price brackets, so that you can get a better indication of what sort of temps you can expect in this case with your PC specs. So we thought it'd be fun to try air cooling the CPU. Really not a good idea in a case like this where airflow is somewhat limited by the mostly glass design, but here we go. We're using Deepcool's AS500 Plus cooler. We actually only just managed to make this fit. The max cooler height for this case is listed as 150mm, but the AS500 Plus is 154mm, but yeah, just about fitted. We're also running 140mm fans on both the bottom and the side to give it as best a chance as possible. So at idle, we got 34 on the CPU and 25 on the GPU. So far so good, though let's see what happens when we put it under load using an AIDA64 stress test. So under load, we got temperatures of 85 on the CPU and 73 on the GPU with hotspots of 87. That's pretty toasty, so in short, don't use an air cooler in the Hyte Y60, you won't get very good cooling performance. Let's move on. So next we're going to try the 280mm radiator setup. We're actually going to try running it in a push config first on the side of the case. Now you might be wondering why I'm not setting this up as an intake, since this is going to end us up with 6 exhausts and only 2 intake fans, but I guarantee there will be quite a few people who want to run it like this for aesthetic reasons. If you do run the side as an intake, you end up seeing the back side of the fans, which looks pretty ugly in my opinion. So anyways, let's compare. We'll try it this way first, then we'll flip them to see how much of a difference it makes. So at idle, on the CPU we got an average of 37 degrees, and on the GPU we got 28 degrees. By the way, probably not going to see much difference in idle temps in any of these tests. But then under load, we were getting averages of 82 on the CPU and 72 on the GPU. So slightly better than the air cooling option, but still not ideal. Let's flip those side fans now to a pull configuration and see what the temperature differences are. So at idle, on the CPU we got an average of 33 degrees, and on the GPU we got 25 degrees. And then under a stress test, we were getting averages of 73 on the CPU and 71 on the GPU. So much better temperatures there on the CPU. You are going to get better performance by having those side fans as an intake rather than as an exhaust. But I mean, if the aesthetic side of things is more important to you, it's your system. If the heat doesn't bother you, it's up to you. Let's move on to a 320mm radiator setup on the top of the case. So once again, we're running 140mm fans on the bottom, 140mm fans on the side as an intake. Let's see what we get. So at idle, on the CPU we got an average of 32 degrees, and on the GPU we got 24. And then under a stress test, we were seeing averages of 82 on the CPU and 70 on the GPU with hotspots of 84. So it just goes to show, bigger is not always better. Alright, so here's a comparison of all of these configurations on one chart. I've kind of arranged them in order of temperatures, low to high. You can see out of all of these, by far the best setup for your CPU in this case is the 280mm side-mounted radiator set as an intake. And if you compare GPU temps between all the different configurations, there's not actually that much in them, only a few degrees. The 320mm radiator looked like the best option if you're prioritizing GPU temps, but I don't personally think it's a big enough of a difference to warrant that much higher CPU temps. And yes, in all cases, the GPU definitely gets a bit toasty, but that's what you get for having a vertically mounted card in a mostly glass case. Now, bear in mind that we were using a 3090 in this system, which generates some serious heat, and I mean, it's only a dual fan 3090 at that. There are definitely cooler models available. Obviously, though, not all of you are going to be using 3090s in this case, so what I decided to do was take a few other graphics cards and test them out to give you a better indication of what GPU temps you might be able to expect in your system. So here they are, and by the way, all of these numbers are under load. I thought it'd be a bit pointless putting the idles in here, since some GPU fans don't even start spinning till they hit 60 plus degrees. Starting with the RTX 3050, we were getting 56 degrees on average with hotspots of 67. The RTX 2060 Super was hitting 62 degrees on average and hotspots of 75. Then stepping up to an RTX 3080, this was a triple fan Gigabyte Vision model. We saw averages of 67 degrees under load and hotspots of 80. And finally, just for comparison, the RTX 3090, where we got an average of 70 under load and hotspots of 84. Hopefully that gives some of you a better idea of what temps might look like with your PC specs. By the way, I didn't put them on this chart, but CPU temps will kind of scale with how much heat your GPU produces. There's about a 4 degrees increase on the CPU temp under load with the RTX 3090 versus the 3050. So definitely an increase, but not by that much. So it's really not too bad a case in terms of thermals, definitely not the best, but I mean, none of these new case releases are going to rewrite the laws of thermodynamics. A case with this much glass is always going to have worse airflow and cooling performance than, say, a full mesh case. That's just how it is, but it does look really nice, and like I said in the previous video, I can see it becoming as popular as the O11 Dynamic from Li & Li. It's a premium case, you get fans and a GPU riser cable included, and it looks great. It's also very quiet as well. That's one thing I forgot to mention in the review, so you can get away with running slightly higher speeds on fans, etc. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this video. Like I said, I just wanted to have some fun and do a bit more testing inside this case. Hopefully it was helpful to some of you. If you enjoyed, a like rating would be much appreciated. Subscribe if you're new, because we've got some awesome stuff coming up. Me and Nene are doing our water-cooled builds this week, so yeah, we're going to be filming them, so make sure you stay tuned for that. You can follow us on social media here and here, but with that being said, hope you all have an awesome week. We'll catch you all in the next one.